physically taxing competition, wherein all of us were carrying packs about 35-40 kilos. We had to walk across the mountains, and we came across a shepherd who had a few pack mules for his own use. The shepherds in the hills of Kashmir move with their entire families. They are called the Gujars and the Bakarwals. They're traditional, nomadic tribes. They still exist. The beautiful National Geographic documentary on them. So we saw the pony, and that shortcut idea came to our mind because we born crooked. So it came to our mind, came to my mind. I have no hesitation saying it. We wanted to put our packs on that horse, give him 100 rupees or so. So he would take us about 4 kilometers. 4 kilometers without 30 kilos at 13,000 feet is a huge thing. So including me, put my pack on the pony. Zamindar Khan did not. He just did not. He didn't say anything because he was too junior, but he did not put his pack. What do you think I felt? I'll tell you what I felt. Humiliated, ashamed, humbled. Yet I felt beautiful for that young Jawan who taught me an outstanding lesson in leadership without a word. So we all very sheepishly picked up our packs, put it on, and we gave him 2-3 galis. I also gave him 2-3 galis. And he walked along. There was a particular NCO, which is a warrant officer, somebody who wears 3 stripes, who's a little older than the rest of us. It's a little difficult for him, obviously, but he was very good at his own job. He was a specialist. He was part of that patrol competition. Next day, we sat somewhere for a little tea break, and we got up, and suddenly this NCO or warrant officer says, "Sahab, radio set." He'd forgotten his radio set. Now in the army, it is sacrilege to lose a radio set. Plus we required that radio set to communicate for an emergency. Plus it's a control store. It can't be, falling into hands of anybody else because it's got codes and stuff like that, and it's used for transmitting within our channels. You can't lose it. You just do not return till you find the damn thing. That's the end of the story. You can retire in the mountain, but you will come back with a radio set. Now, we had already walked for 3 days at 13,000 feet. We were tired, wet because it was, raining also at times. I asked him, where did you last use it or see it? He said, "Sahab, jo pichla jagah jahan ruka tha." So that's probably about 3-4 hour walk. 3-4 hour walk at 13,000 feet, on the 4th day, not an easy job. So, and he was the same NCO, warrant officer, who was angry with Zamindar Khan for not allowing us to put the packs there. Lo and behold, what happens? When we were wondering who will go and get the radio set or look for the radio set, this young lad stands up, puts on his pack, and he says, "Sahab, main jata hu. I will go and get them." Second lesson in leadership. And he's the junior most. So we all put on our packs and went back again. Fortunately, we didn't have to go all the distance. We found it midway at one place. Like many of them have lost many things and have searched for it. And they've always told me, "Sir, why should we search?" Hopefully now you'll go back and tell the rest of your colleagues, this is why we search. We searched, we came back, we came first in that competition. He was the last to come up to put his hand on the trophy, but he's the one who actually should have received the damn trophy in the first place. He was going on leave. He wanted to buy for his mother a watch. In the olden days, buying a lady's watch in the military canteen was a huge thing. There was no Titan. The only watches made in India were HMT and Alwyn. I think both of them don't make anymore. If you had somebody who went to Dubai, they came back with a little Casio, the sexy one. But this is all that was there. He wanted to buy a watch for his mother. He also wanted to buy shiny shoes for his father. And he also wanted to buy a Nokia, that 1100 wala phone with a torchlight. He was going on leave. And the day he was to go on leave, I couldn't meet him. I was very close to him. I couldn't meet him. I got a call from the station master at about 6:30 or 7 in the evening, and he was thanking me for the help we had provided to quell that fire. And I asked him, what fire? Because we had sent nobody. And I was in a job where if somebody needed help, I had to provide that help. I mean, I was the executive, let's say. So I asked him, what fire? He said, "Sahab, there's been a fire in the railway station and your men have come and helped and we are very grateful." So I got hold of the quick reaction team and ran. When we reached that station, it was a small train station with a little restaurant adjacent to the waiting room, and the restaurant was where the fire had started, and the waiting room had caught fire. Single floor waiting room. And when I reached there, the fire tenders had already, 2 fire tenders were there. They had thrown water into the building. Part of the roof had collapsed. The power supply to the train station was cut. But there were still sparks sizzling there. There was smoke coming from somewhere, all filling our lungs. There were parts of the roof that was falling down. That was what, when I entered that door, I was about to, I really don't know whether I was about to go in or whether I just stood there, but I saw somebody rushing in from the door opposite. I didn't know who it was, but somebody came up with a lady in their hands, like that, and came up and put that lady in my hand. That's when I saw it was Zamindar Khan. And he had an injury on his head, he had an injury on his arm, there was little blood here. Before I could even react, because he put that lady in my hands, and it was a full-grown adult lady, young lady, but adult. Before I could do anything, he turned around and ran back into that house. And I wanted to stop him, but he had already gone. He went inside and came back with an infant. Now this infant was wrapped in probably what was curtain cloth or tablecloth, I don't know, and the infant was sogging wet. He had had the sense in that fire to, rip the curtains off the hook, run to the bathroom and put it in the damn bucket or whatever, make it wet, and he wrapped that child in that thing. The child had more problems out of suffocation, but he probably saved her from being burnt. She recovered from that suffocation after about an hour or so. So that was the child. This time I stopped him, and he was more visibly injured because I could see him, and he said, "Nahi sahab, ek aur hai andar," which means one more is inside. And before I could say anything, he ran in. I tried to run, but one of the wooden reapers or the beams on the roof just collapsed in front of me, and the rest of the men held me back. Probably I didn't have the courage to run inside. I don't know. But he ran, and I didn't run. Nobody ran. He came outside with a lady on his shoulder, very old lady, fairly old lady, probably 65 plus. He put her down in front of us and he collapsed. The 3 people he brought out from that room adjacent were a grandmother, a daughter, and a baby. All 3 survived. No burns to anybody. The child was the one who probably would have got burnt had it not been for his action. Zamindar Khan was admitted to the hospital, 75% burns. There were no hands, there was nothing. There was only bone where his hand should have been. His face was burnt. He didn't die because of that, but he died because his lungs were burnt because of the smoke and the heat inside. So he couldn't breathe, his lungs collapsed. He died 2 days later. Before he died, he gave me his phone, small new phone. The last 3 calls were to me, missed calls on my phone, which I didn't take because I was not near my phone. So if I had taken those calls, would we have reacted in time and probably saved both him and those 3 people? I will never know. These are burdens of leadership we have to live with. Your burdens may cost money, my burdens cost lives. There's a little difference. That's the problem. So anyway, in our organization, in our system, we do not let our fallen brethren go unaccompanied. So I escorted him back home on what was his final journey, went to this village in Barmer district on the border with Pakistan, the western border. In a break from tradition, he was to be buried in the late afternoon. Normally burials don't take place after sunset, neither do cremations. We try and keep it before sunset. So again, in a break from tradition, it was almost like the entire village or the district had come to bid him farewell. So there were a huge crowd of people. I was asked, I was a very young officer then, I was asked that nobody must, at least his family should not preferably see his face. because he was all burnt. And it's not a pleasant sight. The family must keep good memories. This is an advice which I was given, and I followed that advice, and nobody was allowed to see his body because it was badly burnt. Because that's the memory that will stay with them then. So as, the time of the burial came, was also the prayer of the Maghrib. Maghrib is the afternoon namaz after the midday one. Yeah, the early afternoon, early evening, late afternoon. You could hear the muezzin giving out the azan from the masjid. Now in the desert, the azan goes for a long distance. Sound travels really far. So from the distance, you could hear him calling the devout to prayer. And the sun was setting in the western desert. No better atmosphere for the soldier to be laid to rest, or anybody to be laid to rest. So as he was being laid to rest, his mother, Fatima B, who I had avoided speaking to till then, came rushing out of the crowd, and she grabbed my uniform. I was in that same combat dress which you saw me, disruptive pattern, and she grabbed my uniform and tore a button. She, obviously agitated, traumatized. She asked me, "Mara kaise? How did he die?" That is when I realized from where Zamindar Khan got his qualities. His father stepped up. His father was probably a distinct head taller than his son. And, face, blackened like leather in the desert sun and the wind. He was like, chiseled in stone. And stone which has weathered the sand of the desert. Tall, spotless white. Spotless white. We struggle to wear whites. He was wearing in the desert spotless white. There was extremely calm demeanor about him. There was no agitation, there was no anger, there was no sorrow. There would have been. But that's a leader. He stepped forward, he got hold of his wife and he pulled her onto one side. Despite her shock, she did not say a word. She just complied with his instructions. That indicates to you his stature, even if it be with his own spouse. He steps forward, and I'm an officer of the Indian Army, and I'm a lieutenant. I thought I was a hell of a starter, the big guy and leader and such. He steps forward, puts his hand on my shoulder. The moment his hand came on my shoulder, my agitation also dropped. And he tells me, "Son, don't tell me how Zamindar died.